What's up? Welcome into Chat It Up Sports here on a Tuesday as we're rolling on through the end of the college football season. Man, can you believe it? I can't believe we're at the end of the season. We're midway through December. Before you know it, Christmas, then the new year. Man, it's all going way too fast. But what's up? I'm Greg Larnerd, your host of Chat It Up Sports. I am solo today. Kind of. None of the boys are with me. I'm doing a solo show with you here for this episode on this Tuesday, whenever you may be listening to it. Make sure you follow us all over social media at Chat It Up Sports and all over where we get your podcasts as well at Chat It Up Sports, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the good stuff. Make sure you're following along and interacting with us on there. 5 stars, nothing less. Make sure you tell a friend, of course. Joining us now on the show to talk all about college football analyst. He also does the co-host, the Pro Football Focus College Football Show. Big time friend of the program, Mr. Max Chadwick. What's up, Max?
What's up, Greg? I appreciate you having me on, dude. Especially it's your birthday today. You told me, so I'm honored to be with you on your birthday today to talk college football, man.
Yeah, it's a little birthday show. We're recording this on Monday. It'll drop on Tuesday. So I appreciate the love for the birthday. I can't believe, man. I like looked at myself in the mirror last night and I was like, man, like 36. I can't believe we're at 36 already. Like on the wrong side of 30 heading toward 40. It's wild to think about.
Yeah, dude. I just turned I turned 27 in November. So I'm officially in my late 20s now, as all my friends like to tell me, because they're all younger than me. Because I was like the oldest in my class. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's not 36 yet, but I feel that a little bit. We're like, damn, dude, late 20s now. Like, where the hell is time gone?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way as well. Everybody I feel like I hang out with, like all the guys are all younger than I am. A lot of the coaches that I hang out with or that I was in Vegas with were all younger than me, and it's definitely a weird feeling. So I get what you're saying. You're in your late 30s or 20s, and now I'm in my getting towards my late 30s as well. I'd still consider 36 still feels like mid 30s.
Oh, it's mid 30s. Absolutely mid 30s. Yeah. No, you're still in your mid 30s. Definitely.
All right, man, let's talk some college football. Just quickly reflecting back on this 2025 regular season, in your eyes, who was the biggest surprise you didn't see coming and who had a good season in that regard, and which team to you was the biggest disappointment? I can imagine it might be your national championship pick, much like myself in Clemson.
Yeah, that's definitely one of them for sure. I guess for biggest surprise, there's probably a lot of good candidates there. I mean, you got to start with the number one team in the country, Indiana. And I thought Indiana would be, a top 20 team after last year, but I didn't think they'd be the number one team in the country, right? So the fact that they're 13-0, I mean, last year's Indiana season was probably the best season in program history, and yet that's nothing compared to what they did this year, right? Going 13-0, beating Ohio State, beating Oregon, beating Iowa, going on the road to beat Penn State too. It's incredible what Chris Ignetti has done with that program right now. And the fact that Indiana is looking like a legit national title contender right now is absolutely outstanding for them. So great job by Indiana. And then, yeah, disappointing. There's plenty of schools to go with here, honestly, because I thought going into the year, there was a pretty clear top 3 teams in the country. And that was Texas, that was Penn State, and Clemson. All 3 of those teams are not in the playoff right now, which is crazy considering I thought there was a pretty clear gap between those 3 and everyone else going into the year, at least. So, yeah, for a lot of different reasons, all 3 of those teams struggled to put results on the field this year. And, yeah, Penn State and Clemson and Texas, I think, are probably the 3, for me at least, most disappointing teams in college football this season.
All right, what about, you mentioned Indiana. How about Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman Trophy, the first Hoosier quarterback to do that? Obviously, it was an incredible speech. He had an amazing season, beating out Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt. Obviously, they had an awesome season in themselves, 10-2. And, look, if it wasn't Indiana and not being a football school, you would think what Diego Pavia did was almost more impressive than what Fernando Mendoza did. But again, it's Indiana football we're talking about. So that makes it even more impressive. And then obviously Pavia is going out there bitching about it, F the voters and the whole thing. And then obviously somebody in his camp, and I'm sure if there was nobody in his camp, he probably wouldn't have walked that statement back, but he walked that statement back over the weekend or on Monday. So what do you think about Mendoza being the Heisman Trophy winner? Had a lot of big moments this year, and how about winning it over a guy like Diego Pavia?
Yeah, I get the argument for Pavia. I mean, honestly, I think there's an argument for all four of those guys, even five if you want to include Jacob Rodriguez, who is the Texas Tech linebacker who just missed out on being at the ceremony. Honestly, probably should have been included at the ceremony, in my opinion. But there's an argument for all five of those guys, right? I mean, Julian Sayin is the most accurate quarterback we've seen in college football maybe ever. Right now, he's on pace to shatter the completion percentage record right now. Pavia, you can argue, is there's no one in the country more important to their team than Diego Pavia is to Vanderbilt. Jeremiah Love is the best running back in the country by a good amount, in my opinion. Jacob Rodriguez had an all-time linebacker season, in my opinion. But Mendoza, I think, was the right call. That's who I would have voted for, too. I think not only was he one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year, but he's on the best team in the country, too, which I think does matter in the Heisman race. And then he had his best performance of his career against Julian Sayin and Ohio State in the biggest game of the year, number 1 Ohio State against number 2 Indiana in that Big Ten title game. I think that matters too. And you mentioned before, Heisman moments, they matter for a lot of people. And Fernando Mendoza had plenty of Heisman moments this year, whether it be the touchdown drive against Penn State in the final 2 minutes with probably the play of the year with him going to Omar Cooper Jr. in the back of the end zone. Then you have the game against Oregon, where you had some big-time throws against Oregon to win that game, too, on the road. You had the touchdown pass to beat Iowa on the road. And like I said before, the Ohio State game in itself, too. So Mendoza had plenty of Heisman moments this year. He was an outstanding quarterback this year on the best team in the country this year, too. I think the story of the season so far in college football has been Indiana, and Mendoza winning the Heisman kind of represents that right there for the Hoosiers.
Okay, what about with those five guys that you just mentioned, which of those guys do you believe has the best chance to kind of have it translate to the NFL and be maybe the best NFL prospect?
Yeah, I think there's two guys I would say for that. I think Mendoza is probably going to be the first quarterback taken in this draft. I liken him to a lot to like a Jared Goff type of quarterback. So I don't know if he'll be like a elite quarterback in the NFL, but he could be a very, very good starter for a while in the NFL. Diego Pavia, I mean, he'll maybe be a day 3 pick, maybe. I mean, I think he's nothing more than a backup quarterback in the NFL, if that. So I don't think really he'll be much of a factor in the league. I think Jacob Rodriguez will probably be a day 3 pick at linebacker, even though he's an awesome player. He's probably going to be a 4th-round pick. So maybe he could be a starting linebacker in the NFL, but I don't know about much more than that. Jeremiah Love is going to be an elite running back. So I think the two guys for me are Jeremiah Love and Julian Sayin. I think Jeremiah Love is going to be a really good running back in the NFL. I think Jahmyr Gibbs comps I've seen for him, I don't hate that at all. He could be like a top 5 running back in the NFL. And then Julian Sayin, I think, could be one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm all in on this kid, honestly. He still has one more year of college football at least to go next year too. But his accuracy, his processing ability is next level for a redshirt freshman right now. And like I said, this guy just does not miss, honestly. So you can argue he's been the best quarterback in the country this year. I think Julian Sayin is going to be a really, really good quarterback. Like if you had to ask me right now, hey, everyone is eligible no matter what age they are. Who is your first quarterback you're taking in the draft this year? I would take Julian Sayin over any other quarterback in the country.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you believe he has the highest pro prospect, him and Jeremiah Love potentially.
Yeah, I think Sayin would go over Love because obviously the importance of quarterback, but like you can argue that Love and Sayin are probably gonna be like equally as good as at their positions as each other. Maybe Love a little bit better at running back than Sayin is at quarterback, but yeah, man, I think Julian Sayin, he's special, man. I really think that kid has I know my co-host Dalton Washman says he sees a lot of like Drew Brees in that kid's tape. I mean, you could say Burrow or anything like that. I mean, just the elite accuracy is unbelievable. I mean, like it's legit like record-shattering accuracy numbers that we're seeing at PFF right now from Julian Sayin as only a redshirt freshman. Yeah, I'm really all in on that kid right now.
And I was going to say it's probably easier to be an impact player as a running back at the next level than it is a quarterback. Obviously, the quarterback has so much on his shoulders, and there's so much you have to worry about in the makeup of the person and running an offense and leading men. Like it's a big responsibility. A running back seems like he can kind of fit in a little bit more. And obviously, Jeremiah Love is incredibly talented. Now, I was perusing your Twitter account earlier today, and I saw you had your way too early Heisman ranks for next year. And obviously, Julian Sayin, as you just alluded to and gushed over him a little bit, I'd assume he's at the top of your list. Talk to me a little bit about that and the way that you see it working out way too early for next year.
Yeah, I think looking back, I probably should have made a couple more risks with that selection.
You can amend it right now if you want.
A lot of people kind of actually, I'm going to keep it, but a lot of people were making fun of me in the comments, being like, "Wow, like hot takes here." There were a lot of the favorites. Yeah, they're right. Like there is always a guy or two that comes out of nowhere every year. But honestly, I had a lot of hot takes last year on my way too early list, and I think I only got one out of the 4 finalists right, which was Jeremiah Love. So I was like, all right, I want to get more right next year. So I had Julian Sayin winning it. I think his receiver, Jeremiah Smith, is going to make it to New York at some point in his career. And next year is going to be his only his last chance of doing that. So I think Jeremiah Smith, his receiver, will make it next year. And then I had it was Gunnar Stockton, the quarterback from Georgia, who was really, really good this year. And Georgia wants to, again, be really good next year with him at the helm. And then I had Arch Manning, too. I think Arch Manning started off slow, yeah. But, I don't think people realized how good he was down the stretch of the season. I think he and Texas will be a really good story in college football next year. I can see Arch Manning making it. As for other guys to keep in mind, if Drew Mestemaker, the North Texas quarterback, transfers to Indiana, which I think would be a really good fit for him, that could be a Heisman guy to watch out for. Ahmad Hardy, if you want to look for a running back, Ahmad Hardy is probably the best running back in America at Missouri right now, going to next year, I should say. So he's another guy to watch out for too. And honestly, just a lot of these transfer quarterbacks. I mean, whoever LSU gets in the portal, I will say if Dante Moore goes back, I would take out Gunnar Stockton and put in Dante Moore as my finalist. I just don't know if Dante Moore will actually go back to Oregon because he might be a top 5 pick in the draft right now. But yeah, I'm kind of looking at this transfer portal and kind of seeing, okay, who transfers where in this quarterback carousel right now. And I think whoever ends up at Indiana and Oregon and maybe LSU too, they could have and maybe Miami too. They could have a really good chance at putting up some ridiculous numbers next year.
You know, it's funny. We don't always have to throw out the hot takes and do these things. And obviously I know that's what gets clicks and people are excited about those things. And you mentioned that. And the first thing that I thought about was my softball girls. And they've since I've joined, they're always looking at my picks that I make every week for our core 4 on Chat It Up. And, they're always ragging on me about making safe picks and, oh, you don't take any exciting teams or pick any upsets or anything like that. Well, I'm like, what? I want to be at the top of the list. The goal is not just to pick random teams that are exciting and yeah, they might pull an upset. I'm trying to be the best. I'm trying to have the best record at the end of the year. So and it's funny because after they said that, I think I went 4-0 that week or something like that. So it was just kind of funny in that regard. Now, you mentioned Dante Moore. Do you believe that he should come back, or do you think he's ready to roll and be an NFL prospect?
That's a good question. I don't think he should come back. Now, if he feels like he's not ready for the NFL yet, then by all means go back to school for another year. But because we've seen time and time again, the NFL is not a developmental league. Like, you better be ready to go in the NFL or they're going to move on from your ass pretty quickly, honestly. So I think Dante Moore, if he feels ready, which I think he is ready, he should go to the NFL. I think right now he has the second best passing grade in the country, only behind Julian Sayin right now. I mean, my hot take is, and we'll put our draft rankings out later on, I probably will have him QB1 in the draft over Fernando Mendoza, even as much as I love Fernando Mendoza this year. I think Dante Moore is like a CJ Stroud type of quarterback I can see right now at the next level. And he's been incredible this year as a redshirt sophomore for Oregon. So I think he's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. It's really hard for me to say, hey, go back to school for another year when you're going to be a top 5 pick. I mean, look at guys like, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Allard might have been first-round picks last year, and now both of them aren't going to be first-round picks at all after going back to school for another year too. We've seen this kind of not work out well for quarterbacks in the past. And of course, like I said, next year you're dealing with Julian Sayin and Arch Manning and a lot of other guys going back to school for another year too. And that quarterback class, this year's quarterback class is not as loaded right now. It's really, for Dante Moore, it's really just Fernando Mendoza that he's competing with right now at the top of that quarterback class. So I think he should leave and go to the draft because he's going to be a top 5, top 10 pick in the draft. I would almost guarantee that. So I would advise him to go to the draft, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But I do think, a lot of people were saying earlier on that he's definitely going back to school. I do think that thinking has changed in recent weeks. And I think now people are kind of leaning towards him entering the draft this year.
And that's a great point when it comes to the quarterback class this year versus next year, where it's not so loaded this year, more loaded next year. And who knows? He's got an opportunity here to hopefully play a couple of games in the college football playoffs and boost his draft stock a little bit and make people more believe that, hey, he is really ready. Because when you mentioned Dante Moore, and I watched a little bit of him this year, I'm like, man, I think he might be one of those guys that could benefit from going back and playing in that Oregon offense with Dan Lanning and whatnot again. But you're right. I think you make a really good point that if you have some good games here in the college football playoff and you advance Oregon to maybe a national championship or the semifinals or whatever it may be, and we'll get to the college football playoff here in a minute, you might have a really good opportunity to strike while the iron's hot, make some good money, get to the NFL, and you know, who knows what kind of situation you put yourself in, and you either get a chance to start right away, or maybe you get a chance to sit and play behind somebody and learn a little bit. But as you mentioned, you've got to be ready to roll right from the get-go. It's not a developmental league in the NFL.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to say too, the other thing I want to point out with that I think is important is that, you know, Will Stein, who in my opinion has been the best offensive coordinator in college football for the last 2 or 3 years now, he's gone. So he's going to Kentucky to be the head coach next year there. So Dan Lanning, listen, he has nailed it at offensive coordinator throughout his entire career at Oregon, whether it be Kenny Dillingham's now, of course, at Arizona State, or Will Stein is now, of course, the head coach at Kentucky. And he used to say that you won't just nail it again and get another great offensive coordinator. But if I'm Dante Moore, that is a risk, right? You just lost the best OC in the country going to Kentucky now. Now you got a whole brand new OC coming into Oregon this year. I think they actually might promote a guy within the coaching staff to OC, but that might not work out as well as Will Stein too. So it is a kind of a risk for Dante Moore to say, hey, maybe this new offensive coordinator that I have in my redshirt junior year won't be as good as Will Stein. That might hurt my draft stock too.
It's a great point. Love where your head's at. Let's continue to talk quarterback because a couple of them on Monday jumped in the transfer portal. Let's start with DJ Lagway, obviously from Florida. Billy Napier's no longer there. He's obviously been linked to Miami, LSU, Baylor. Some people are even thinking JMU with his old coach with Billy Napier. Just give me your thoughts on his potential landing spot. I saw on Twitter you had some various thoughts on that. And how do y'all view his value as a college football quarterback as it stands right now? Because last year obviously was a very up and down year for him.
Yeah, definitely more downs than ups, I would even say. It might even be worse than his freshman year, which is it's not a good sign when you're going backwards instead of forwards. Yeah, I think he's a guy that his stock isn't as high as it was coming out of high school, obviously, when he's the number one quarterback in the country out of high school. But he still has as much, if not more, physical talent than any other quarterback in the country. And I think a lot of coaches will be very intrigued by that physical talent. Now, his decision-making, his accuracy, his footwork have been a mess throughout his 2 years at Florida right now. So there is a lot of development needed. But there is a very high ceiling with DJ Lagway, and one of the highest ceilings, I would argue, in the country. So, yeah, I think there are plenty of schools that will be interested in him. I think Miami could be interested with Carson Beck leaving. They've taken on these kind of reclamation projects. The quarterback before in Cam Ward, it worked out great. Carson Beck, it worked out great. Could take on a DJ Lagway too. I think Baylor is a really good one to watch out for because Sawyer Robertson's gone. DJ Lagway grew up like about 2.5 hours away from Baylor, and his dad actually played at Baylor. So I think that connection might matter too. Maybe he wants to go back to the home state of Texas. Maybe Texas Tech. I think I've kind of seen reports that Texas Tech is not really interested in him right now, but if he wants to stay in the state of Texas, that could be a school too to watch out for. So, yeah, I think LSU too. Maybe Lane Kiffin wants to bring in a guy of his kind of arm talent and say, hey, I could coach him up to be a really good quarterback because he's done that before too. So those are some schools to watch out for. Maybe Oregon would be interested in DJ Lagway. I don't know about that one though either, but there's going to be a lot of schools interested in DJ Lagway. I think I put JMU on there on the graphic. A lot of people hated that. You probably won't go to JMU. He's probably going to go to a Power 4 school, but I wanted to put that on there and say maybe just follows Billy Napier at JMU. Who knows if his stock really is not as high as we think it is right now. So, yeah, there's a lot of schools that should be interested in DJ Lagway, but he is a project for whoever takes him on.
That is, as you mentioned, a lot more downs potentially than there were ups last season. All right, let's go to the Nebraska quarterback, Dylan Raiola, also hitting the mystical magical portal. Where might be his best fit? Obviously, you could kind of see like him and Lagway, kind of the top two there as it sits right now in the transfer portal. How do you all view him as a college football quarterback as well, with another sort of disappointing year at Nebraska? Maybe not for him in totality, or maybe you think it was a bad year for him, but just Nebraska in general, just kind of disappointing with the expectations coming into this season.
Yeah, I think ironically, because, it seemed like a great fit for Raiola, considering his dad was an All-American at Nebraska. His uncle was the offensive line coach at Nebraska too. But It wasn't a great schematic fit, I would say, at Nebraska. I would say Dana Holgerson's offense, the offensive coordinator, it just was not suited to him at all. They were just not pushing the ball downfield at all. And Ryle is a guy that has a NFL caliber type of arm. So he's a guy that I think is kind of like Lagway's, a little bit of a project, but I think Lagway's issues are a lot more on him, whereas Raiola, I could see working somewhere else where they actually utilize his talents better than Nebraska did. So I'm excited to see what he does. Of course, he's coming off the injury too, which does matter. Texas Tech was a school that everyone's kind of joking around about right now. See if he follows Patrick Mahomes to go there too. I saw Pete Nakos reported that is not a school that's going to be really interested in him. So that's kind of, that dream is dead of him going to Texas Tech, I think. But I think Miami is definitely another school, like I said, for Lagway. I think Oregon, I've heard Oregon is a school to watch out for Raiola too. So I think that could be somewhere he goes to if Dante Moore does end up declaring for the NFL draft. If Raiola just wants to stay in the Big Ten and do that. I think it's a lot of schools for Raiola that could make sense. Like Indiana maybe could be a fit for him. Yeah, I think it's a lot of schools. A lot of the same kind of destinations that probably will be looking at DJ Lagway too. I think him, Lagway, Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati is a really good quarterback too. That should be getting a lot of love in the portal. Sam Levitt from Arizona State. They're all going to be kind of going to a bunch of different spots, I think, right now in this transfer portal.
Who do you believe is the best quarterback that's in the transfer portal right now?
Good question. I would say if you just want the highest floor, I would probably say a Brendan Sorsby, the Cincinnati quarterback. He's probably the best year of any of the guys that in the portal right now. He was really, really good at Cincinnati this year. Now, you want ceiling, I would go more for a Sam Levitt or Lagway or Raiola. But if you want a high floor kind of guy, like I think Texas Tech, I've heard, is really interested in Brendan Sorsby. I think Indiana, ironically, Brendan Sorsby transferred to Cincinnati from Indiana. He can go back to Indiana and play under Kursignetti. That could be a good fit for that offense too. Yeah, I think if you want the highest floor, which is what I'd be looking at right now if I'm a team looking in the portal, I think Brendan Sorsby probably provides that out of any quarterback.
So it's funny because just the general college football fan would say, hey, look, I know Raiola's name. I know Lagway's name. Obviously, Sam Levitt, what he did last year with Arizona State getting into the college football playoff. But Sorsby is somebody that maybe the casual just doesn't really know that well and wouldn't think that highly of. So it's interesting to hear you say Sorsby as the best prospect there in the transfer portal.
Yeah. And the other one, too, who wasn't entered yet, but I think he probably will, is Drew Mestemaker, the freshman at North Texas. Yep. He has not entered the portal yet, so we can't really talk about him yet. But that's a guy, if I'm Indiana, I am all over that guy. He was outstanding as a redshirt freshman at North Texas this year. He's got great arm talent, too. I think he would fit the Mendoza role perfectly at Indiana next year. So I think if he does enter the portal, I would expect Indiana to be all over that kid in the portal.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the head coaching shakeup now. Obviously, there's a lot of different faces in new places. So which new coach are you the most excited about for with name and fit of the school? And then which name/fit do you like the least on the flip side of that?
Oh, interesting. I mean, obviously, the one that's going to generate the most buzz next year is Lane Kiffin. I think that's going to be a really fun hire at LSU. I think it was the right hire for them, too.
You think he'll do well there? Do you think that's going to be a good fit? Obviously, the last couple of coaches that they hired weren't great. Obviously, Ed Orgeron won a national championship. I get that, but then obviously fell off a cliff after that. And then Brian Kelly was just a disaster.
Yeah, I think Kelly's fault, issues were his fault, honestly. I mean, he just I've heard a lot of stories of him just not caring enough, right? And just not putting in the work, honestly, and just kind of cashing his check there at LSU. So I think Lane Kiffin's gonna be a really good coach for LSU. And like I said before, I mean, I think the three coaches before Brian Kelly all won a national title at LSU, whether it be Orgeron, like you mentioned before, Les Miles, Nick Saban, all of them won a national title at LSU. I'm not saying that Lane Kiffin will do that, but there is a high floor at LSU and a very high ceiling too, which is why I think he took the job and why I agree with him taking the job too. I know it kind of sucks for Ole Miss, but that's one of those jobs it's really hard to pass up if you're a coach out there. So I'm excited for him and see what he does. Kind of like the villain of college football now again, which I think is a really fun role for Lane Kiffin to play. So I'm excited to see him go to Ole Miss and go to Tennessee next year. Two schools that don't really like him that much because he left both those programs. But excited by that one. I mentioned before, I think Will Stein at Kentucky, that's an A+ hire by the Wildcats. I think not enough schools right now are willing to hire excellent coordinators, even though if you look at the top coaches in college football right now, they were coordinators when they were hired by their current schools, whether it be Kirby Smart, who was Alabama's DC when Georgia hired him. Dan Lanning was Georgia's DC when Oregon hired him. Marcus Freeman was promoted to head coach when he was a defensive coordinator at Notre Dame too. So there's a lot of great coaches in college football right now that were not head coaches before they were hired. And I think Will Stein is a worthy risk, I think, by Kentucky. And like I said before, I think he is one of the best offensive minds in the sport. And he's very young too. And he's from Kentucky too. So this might be like a destination job for him. That to me is an A+ hire. I don't think enough schools were interested in Will Stein this offseason. As for ones I didn't love, that one's hard. I don't really remember one that I'm like, oh, that's okay. Like, I think
that's cool.
I think what was one that I was like, yeah, that was whatever. Honestly, it hasn't.
A lot of people were talking about Pete Golding. I was like,
that one to me is just, they were kind of like just putting a Band-Aid over that for now. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to work out. They kind of just wanted a coach that's just going to stabilize it as they go on their playoff run. I don't know how it's going to go in the future. We'll see about that one. I think Ryan Silverfield at Arkansas is solid. I'm not going to say he's a bad hire. It's a solid hire. I think he did a good job at Memphis. We'll see what he does in the SEC now. I think he's a good coach. I don't know how he'll do in the SEC, though. The other one that has not happened yet that is probably the favorite right now that I would be okay on is, I think, Jedd Fisch to Michigan. I think that's the one. He's probably the betting favorite right now for Michigan, with Kalen DeBoer and Kenny Dillingham most likely sticking at their schools. If that does happen for Michigan, that to me is like a C+ type of hire. I think he's a okay coach. He's a good coach. Don't know if he's a good enough coach for Michigan, but with their situation right now with Sharon Moore, you probably just take what you can get right now if you're Michigan. But if they hire Jedd Fisch, I'd be less excited about that than I would be over a Kalen DeBoer or Kenny Dillingham.
You know, it's funny. I've always said, as a radio host and things like that, I've done a lot of interviews, had a lot of conversations before in my day. And I always think the mark of a great guest is somebody who can anticipate the question that's coming next and answer it before I even get a chance to answer it or ask it. So thank you for answering that question about Sharon Moore and Michigan, because I was going to ask you about that next. Let's talk a little bit about the college football playoff. Obviously, we got games coming up this weekend. I know it's been a little while since the seedings have come out, and you've probably talked about it ad nauseum on your shows and on social media and all these things, but do you think they ended up getting it right by definition of the way that it's set up, and it's really not the 12 best teams at this point? It's sort of like, okay, like we're going to have to go by our guidelines and get the 12 best that way based on our guidelines instead of the actual 12 best in college football. What did you think about the College Football Playoff Committee, the way they picked those teams? Obviously, Miami over Notre Dame. Your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I think ultimately they got it right by leaving out Notre Dame. And that's not to say Notre Dame's not a great team. I think they are absolutely an elite team in college football. Same. But I'm really, to me, I'm all about most deserving. I don't really care who the committee thinks the best teams are. In my opinion, the only way to determine who the best teams are is by looking at who deserves it the most. Like, those are the best teams, in my opinion, more than anything else. Like, Notre Dame beating up on a pretty soft schedule outside the first 2 games of the year, that doesn't really do much for me. I know they're a great team. Don't get me wrong. They would have been a national title contender if they made the playoff, but I don't think what they did at 10-2 this year was deserving of getting into the playoff. I don't completely agree with it. There's a couple things I would have changed about it. Like, personally, I don't really understand Ohio State at 2 over Georgia. I think Georgia's resume at 12-1 is better than Ohio State's at 12-1. I think Ohio State, that's a small, very small gripe, but I think Ohio State probably should have been the 3 seed. And also, if you put Georgia at 2, there's a chance if Miami beats Texas A&M that you get Georgia versus Carson Beck, which would have been cinema if that happened. So I think they kind of missed out on what could have been an all-time matchup right there if they did that. The other thing is, too, and this I knew they were not going to do this. I wasn't really that surprised or upset by it, but I would have had BYU in the field along with Alabama over Miami. So that's one where I thought BYU was very disrespected the entire time by the committee with what they did this year at 11 or now 11-2. But with an 11-1 record going into that Big 12 title game. Yes, I know they got blown out both times by Texas Tech, but Texas Tech is a top 4 team in the country at least right now too. So BYU, I mean, they beat Utah, top 15 team. They beat Cincinnati. They beat some other really good teams. Arizona's a top 20 team in the committee's ranking too. I don't really understand how an 11-1 really should be treated like that. BYU is worse off than a 10-2 Miami or anything like that too. So I think BYU I probably would have put in to the playoff along with Alabama over Miami. But again, I didn't expect that to happen, so I wasn't really that upset by it when it didn't happen.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the most intriguing matchups this coming weekend in the first round of the college football playoffs. Which matchup intrigues Max Chadwick the most this weekend?
Yeah, it's got to be the first two, right? The ones that don't include the group of 6 teams, and I think both those group of 6 teams are great, but it's going to be hard for them to win against two Ole Miss, who already destroyed Tulane earlier this year, and then James Madison against Oregon, and I think Oregon's one of the best teams in the country. So I think those probably could be 17 or more point blowouts. I probably think in the playoff. I think the first 2 games are going to be really fascinating. On Friday night with Alabama and Oklahoma. Alabama, of course, lost to Oklahoma by 2 points at home. Now they go on the road to Oklahoma. That's going to be a really fun game. How Ty Simpson handles the blitzes and pressure from Brent Venables, and he's a guy that has not handled the blitz or pressure very well recently. And then John Mateer and Oklahoma's offense, can they do anything? Honestly, this could be a very low-scoring game, I think, in the on Friday night. So I'm excited to watch that game. And then the Saturday game, of course, Miami against Texas A&M. That could probably be the most fun game I think we get in the first round of the playoff. It also could be a low-scoring game, too. The 2 really good defenses going at it with Miami's and was one of the best in the country. And then Texas A&M's really, really good, well-rounded, too. That's going to be a really fun game. And I think whichever quarterback handles the defense better will probably win that game. And I think that might be Carson Beck in Miami right now.
All right, I just want to take a quick moment and just kind of revisit that Alabama-Oklahoma matchup, because first time around, Alabama outplayed them. I mean, you look at all the statistics, all the numbers, things like that. You watch that game and you would think, man, Alabama outplayed Oklahoma. The turnovers plagued them, the extra possessions that Oklahoma got, they took advantage of, and they were able to beat Alabama, as you mentioned, at their house. Now it's flipped. They got to go on the road. They got to go to Oklahoma. So how do you see this one playing out? Because like you mentioned, like Mateer's not been playing great. The offense for Alabama hasn't been playing great. There might be some rumblings that maybe Ty Simpson is dealing with a little bit of an injury. Who knows? So things are kind of just up in the air a little bit right now on both of these sides. And you mentioned it might be a low-scoring affair where the defenses take over, and maybe it comes down to which team turns the ball over more or less, or who makes a play. So give me just a small little preview of that game and your thoughts going into that one.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's going to be a very defensive game. I still, even though he's been kind of cold lately, I still like Ty Simpson more than John Mateer, so I am picking Alabama to win the game and get revenge on Oklahoma. Like you said before, they had a lot of mistakes in that game. Like the pick 6 that Oklahoma had was huge in that one too. I think Alabama's defense is going to really perform well against Oklahoma. I think Alabama has probably a top 5 secondary in the country. And Oklahoma's passing game has been practically non-existent since Mateer got hurt with that hand injury. Now, maybe his hand is fully healed now. Now he has 3 weeks off between their last game and now. Maybe that helps him out because, I mean, since he got hurt, I mean, he's been legit like one of the worst quarterbacks in America since Mateer got hurt. So we'll see how that goes. But I think Alabama's defense will play really, really well against Oklahoma. Probably not even allow 20 points, I would expect, from the Sooners. It's all about Ty Simpson, honestly, because I can promise you right now, Alabama's not going to run the ball well in this game. They have been one of the worst teams in the country at running the ball. Oklahoma's one of the best teams in the country defending the run this year. To me, it all comes down to, can Ty Simpson just do enough against those blitzes and against that pressure? Because Brent Venables is one of the brightest defensive minds in college football. And he knows, hey, we got to get after Ty Simpson. We're going to blitz the hell out of this kid. We're going to send a lot of pressure at this kid, too, because he does not handle pressure well within a clean pocket. And when you don't blitz him, Ty Simpson is a great quarterback, and why he's going to be maybe a first-round pick in the draft. But when you get after him and you do blitz him, that's when he becomes a lot of the issues you see for Ty Simpson, too. So I think Brent Venables knows that. He knew that in the last game against Ty Simpson when they beat them. He's going to do it again this time, too. So I think if Ty Simpson in Alabama, and not even just him either, because I think Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer have not done a good enough job of finding answers against blitzes this year. They've got to be a lot better and be prepared for those blitzes and those pressures this Friday night, because if they're not, it could be a very low-scoring game, and in those 17-14 type of games, it's basically a coin flip who can win that game too. So they better be prepared for those blitzes, because I think how Simpson and Alabama handles those blitzes could determine whether or not they can beat Oklahoma.
Yeah, like you said, it's a lot on Ty Simpson's shoulders without a stable running game there. Obviously, not having Jam Miller's. I mean, there's no better way to say it. It's a detriment. Like you usually try to run the football, establish the run, then utilize the play action pass, get the linebackers, the safeties to sort of cheat up a little bit, and then you're able to take advantage of things on the outside. But Alabama just can't do that right now. Like the -3 yards in that SEC championship game, rushing the football, it's just really bad. So I was high on Alabama coming into this season in terms of making a run at a college football national championship. But without the luxury of a run game, like it's just going to be incredibly difficult to be able to make a run in this college football playoff as it's currently set. So let's talk a little bit about the bracket. And obviously last year was different, the way that they seeded teams, and there were some easier paths to a college football playoff or a championship like a Penn State got. This year's a little bit different. Obviously, they've seeded things a little bit differently this year. But in your estimation, who has the path of least resistance, the easier path to a college football national championship in your eyes?
Yeah, good question. I would. This is tough because the way it's seeded now is a lot better. So it is like you're going to avoid the Penn State where all I got to do is beat SMU and beat Boise State in order to get to the semifinals. But I would probably in this, and honestly, they deserve it, is probably Indiana, honestly. I mean, Indiana, Alabama, and Oklahoma are both really good teams. Yeah, for sure. But they're very, very flawed teams too. And Indiana is maybe the least flawed team in college football right now. It's hard to find any weakness on Indiana right now. So they should win that game. And then you play in the Peach Bowl in the semifinal against either Texas Tech or most likely, let's just say, Oregon. Yeah, I think both those. I mean, Indiana beat Oregon by 10 points at Oregon, right? So it's not even a road game anymore. It's a neutral site game. And then Texas Tech is an elite defense, maybe the best defense in the country. But Baron Morton against that Indiana defense, I don't really know how he's going to do in that one either. So I think Indiana, and again, they deserve it because they're the number one seed in the playoff. That's how it should be seeded. But Indiana probably has the path, again, of least resistance, I want to say. But again, Texas Tech and Oregon are going to provide really good battle for Indiana in that semifinal game if they make it there.
But like you said, like that's how it should be. Like, it should. The number one team, the team who earns the highest seed, should have the easiest path to a college football national championship because you've earned that. So and they've got it right. They finally, obviously, they fixed that. I'm really glad that they did because that was atrocious last year, the way that it was all set up. But let's talk a little bit about bowl games. And I find myself forgetting about bowl games now a little bit more with the college football championship and the playoff and all this stuff. Like, I'm not specifically covering one team anymore. Like the last 3 years when I was on radio in Chattanooga, obviously we're locked into the Vols and what they're doing and what bowl game they're playing in. I went to a Music City Bowl against Purdue back in the day. I think it was in 2021, 2022, something like that. So now I don't really pay as much attention to the bowl games, but are there any bowl games that intrigue you, perhaps like the 2025 Disappointment Bowl featuring Clemson and Penn State?
Yeah, if you told me it sucks. It's like I picked Clemson to win it all, and I was trying to go 3 for 3 in my national title picks. And then I'm also a diehard Penn State fan. So if you told me that those two would be playing in December, I'd be like, wow, okay, what a playoff game that we have, huh? No, it's actually the Pinstripe Bowl, actually. So yeah, it's a pretty rough look for me, honestly, in that bowl game. I remember actually my family, because we're from New Jersey, and I'll be in New Jersey for that bowl game. And my family was like, did you even want to go to it? I'm like, hell no. I don't want to go to that game. It's like an hour drive for us. I'm like, I'm not going to that game. If you guys want to go see that game, go ahead. I'm not going to that game. The ones that actually I think are going to be really fun, the Citrus Bowl is going to be awesome. I think Texas against Michigan. I mean, you got two massive brands in college football. You have Arch Manning at Bryce Underwood. Biff Poggi, of course, now at head coach now for Michigan. But I'm excited to watch that game. Two really, really good teams in college football, two top 20 teams in the country. That Citrus Bowl is going to be awesome. I'm really excited for that. I mean, I would have loved to see BYU against Notre Dame in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Was kind of the battle between the two teams that probably felt like they got screwed by the committee for the playoff. But, of course, Notre Dame opted out of it. But we still have a great Pop-Tarts Bowl anyways with BYU playing Georgia Tech, who's still a really good team, too, with their run game and the way they kind of structure their offense. So that could be a high-scoring game because I think Georgia Tech's defense is not very good, and BYU's got a really good offense, too. So I'm excited to watch that game. It's going to be a really fun one, too. And then, obviously, Diego Pavia's last hurrah at Vanderbilt against Iowa, too, is the other ranked game we have in the bowl season with Vanderbilt playing Iowa. That should be a really fun bowl game too, and kind of see how Pavia and that electric Vanderbilt offense, how they handle one of the best defenses in the country in Iowa. That's another game that I'm really looking forward to seeing in bowl season too.
All right, just to kind of wrap things up here, Max, let's talk a little bit about the Tennessee Volunteers. Obviously, we're a podcast based out of Chattanooga, so people care about the Tennessee Vols, and we've already talked about Alabama. We've talked a little bit about Georgia and whatnot. So let's talk a little Vols here to finish things up. Give me your thoughts on their season this year. 8-4, like not bad, but obviously not what people anticipated. But at the same time, dealing with the Nico Iamaleava situation and then having to sort of basically trade him for Joey Aguilar, with UCLA, and the way that he came in, the way that he played this year, obviously an incredible story. And I loved following him. The defense was a little bit banged up this year, obviously with Jamon McCoy, missing the entire year, and then obviously going to the draft now. So he's not coming back. The wide receivers in their totality were young, really talented, but in all reality, dealt with a lot of drops this year. There was the Boo Carter issues, Tim Banks out, Jim Knowles in. So just give me your little synopsis on what you think of Tennessee this past year and moving forward.
Honestly, I think you just made a great point right there, because I kind of forget just how much was going against Tennessee going into the year. And I know Tennessee fans 8-4. I remember the Josh Heupel hot seat talk I always thought that was crazy. I think he's been an outstanding head coach for Tennessee right now, and they're very lucky to have that kind of coach right now. I think, honestly, all told, it's a pretty good year for Tennessee. I know 8-4 is not what you want. You made the playoff last year. You want to make the playoff every year. But 8-4 with that saga with Iamaleava, you bring in Joey Aguilar, who I was, honestly, to be quite frank, I was not that high on Joey Aguilar going into the year. He proved me wrong. He proved a lot of people wrong. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the country, in my opinion, this year too. The defense, you mentioned all the injuries that they had on that side of the ball, Jermon McCoy being out and all the other injuries they had on that side of the ball too. Yeah, they had issues on that defense, but still was good enough too. So yeah, honestly, all told, yeah, 8-4 is not what you want normally for Tennessee, but like 8-4, if you told me 8-4 preseason for Tennessee, I'm like, yeah, actually that's a pretty good year considering all the things going on this offseason too for Tennessee. So honestly, like you said, I think it should be remembered how we thought about Tennessee going into the year, where I was saying like, hey man, they could be like a 7-5, 6-6 type of team this year with all this saga with Nico Iamaleava. And in my opinion, they downgraded at quarterback going into the year with Iamaleava going to Joey Aguilar, and honestly, they upgraded going to Joey Aguilar too. So it just shows how good of a coach Josh Heupel is, how good of an offensive mind Josh Heupel is. And I think all the hot seat talk with him is a little ridiculous right now. So we'll see what they do at quarterback, whether or not they trust the true freshman, Faison Brandon, or whoever else in that quarterback room to be the quarterback. Maybe they bring in a transfer. I think DJ Lagway could be a really fun fit in that vertical offense too. But yeah, all told, honestly, it was a pretty good year, ironically, for Tennessee, all things considered.
What about Jim Knowles? Just last quick thought on him replacing Tim Banks and what he brings, obviously coming over from your beloved Penn State.
Yeah, I think he didn't have a great year this year, and I think some of that was on him this year too. But, you got to remember how good of a defensive coordinator he was, whether it be at Ohio State the year before where everyone thought he was the best DC in the country, or Oklahoma State where he was amazing at Oklahoma State too, and why Ohio State hired him in the first place. So, yeah, it wasn't a great year at Penn State this year, but then again, it was a disaster all around for the Nittany Lions this year too. So, yeah, I still think he's a really good defensive coordinator. I think he's a good hire overall by Tennessee, and I'm excited to see what he can do now in the SEC now for the first time after going in from Oklahoma State to Ohio State and now Penn State and now Tennessee. Yeah, it didn't work out at Penn State, but they still had a pretty good defense. It wasn't a bad defense by any stretch. I still think it would be a pretty good hire for Josh Heupel on that side of the ball.
Follow him on Twitter at CFB Max Chadwick. He's a football analyst for Pro Football Focus, co-host of PFF's college football show as well. Max, before I let you roll, give me what are you guys doing for the playoff? Are you got any special content coming out? I know you do the show. What are you guys doing around the college football playoff and these bowl games?
Yeah, so we're doing a massive preview show tomorrow for the first round at 1 p.m. Eastern time, live on our channel, the PFF College Football Show, kind of going over the passing game and the run game against.
And when you say defense. Tomorrow, you mean Tuesday?
Tuesday, sorry, yes, okay. Tuesday. No, you're good. Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going live to break down the preview for all four of the first round games. And then I think we're doing a mock draft on Friday. I think we're also previewing. We're actually going to do those 3 bowl games I mentioned before as a preview too. That's going to be fun. And then, yeah, Sunday is our review show for the 4 first round games. And then Monday, actually, instead of Tuesday, we're going to do Monday because of Christmas season. Monday, we're going to do the preview show for the quarterfinal round, which would be an all-time quarterfinal round that we get in the playoff too. So I'm excited for all that. And yeah, the PFF College Football Show on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcast too.
Bam, there it is. Again, Max Chadwick, buddy. I really appreciate you doing this. It's been a while since I've done a solo interview. I miss it. I really enjoy doing it. I miss my guys, obviously, as well, when we had that little roundtable interview with you. But it's been cool to just chop it up, you and me, here on the show. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
Of course, Greg. Happy birthday, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Follow us all over social media at Chatted Up Sports and wherever you get your podcasts as well at Chatted Up Sports. Have a great week. The boys will be back on Friday. Well, they'll probably do a live show on Thursday night, actually. And I think I'll be able to join that one where we'll be doing our own playoff preview as well. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.